I'm no stranger to fixing broken stuff. Come with me and we'll try and walk you through what Paul has stitched me up with this time, because this isn't really straightforward. It's going to take a little bit of time, this one. So yeah, come on through and let's get to it. This e-trike has come into us as a fail repair from another shop. They called the customer and they sent it to us. So he's collected it, brought it here, and we're going to fix it on this video. We've got this massive pile of pieces here that we've got to work through. Going through this process on a job like this, what we would like to do really is see if we can actually get spare parts for it first. So we've headed already over to the Jorvik site who make this bike. They have spare parts on the Jorvik site. Probably put it up here now on the screen so you can have a quick check just to see what I mean by they have spare parts. They've also got a really good customer service line with a technician at the other end of the phone that you can talk to. That's awesome. You know, that's a godsend in repair. So what's the actual problem here? We've got a mess of cables everywhere. It looks like someone has hacked away at this cable to get it out, and they've refitted one new cable and then everything's got a little bit lost. So let's spread everything out and break it down. We have this item. It's known as a speed controller, an ESC, an ECU. Lots of different companies use different names for this. This right here controls all of where the power goes, the computer gets its information, all of that stuff. It's looking a bit worse for wear. I think this is probably originally fitted to the bike and this has gone wrong, to which a replacement has been ordered, which is here. And that looks like it's been hacked apart. And I've got this horrible feeling that someone has tried to refit it or remove it and damaged it on the refit removal. We actually have a full replacement for this module. And then we've got this little article. This is quite interesting. We might call this a fire hazard, and that's not what you want. Don't ever do this. Never, ever, ever. There is a lot of voltage, ampage going through these cables. They are not designed to be spliced with these little splicer jigs and exposed like this, where they can short and cause electrical fires. This is deadly. Do not do this at home. So we've gone through our wires that are here on the side. If we look closer at the bike, it looks like this loom that's been hacked up has been fitted. So the previous shop got this far. They've fitted this through the frame, internally routed it, and they've got it to this end. But we've also got an exposed chop wire. We're gonna have to do some research on that. Now this, as you might well know, is a battery. Pretty obvious. However, it's meant to sit in here, behind the seat. This little hacked up piece of loom here was the power cable that goes into the bottom of the battery, while that goes into your ECU. That's missing a massive piece of plastic that the battery sits on, a big runner. So we're gonna have to get one of those, as well as the runner. Once we have all of those parts, we can then test everything properly and make sure it's all in good working order. Unknown areas that we don't know about yet: the display and the front wheel with the hub drive motor. It was brought into us in good faith that those things worked before, but then it's all stopped working. So those are still unknown, and that's quite scary because we need to know if they work. So we'll get back to that. And now for something completely different. The mechanical side of this. It's a bit flawed. Again, it's not great. So the brakes don't do anything really. The headset's loose. The fork does flex, which we understand. It's not exactly a high performance fork. It's doing its job. It's going to flex a little bit with all that load. There are also some little things other than that, like the tyres on backwards, and the brakes aren't connected to the rear. It's just not working. So we need to go through, sort that brake out, run a new cable down there, and then see what the brakes are actually doing. Hopefully they work. The gears do work. Shock horror. The only thing really on the bike that actually works. So yeah, we've got our work cut out for us. Let's talk about the elephant in the room here. Chinese and overseas e-bikes and accountability. So a lot of the bike shops at the moment are kind of turning away e-bikes that aren't necessarily sold in the UK or the EU or through a UK distribution or European distribution chain. For example, Amazon, eBay, Wish.com, AliExpress, the list goes on. E-bike conversions and online e-bikes purchased from these third parties that are not in the UK or the EU won't necessarily take accountability for any of the issues that occur with these e-bikes. In the event of a fault or a fire, the bike shop would be held accountable for working on the bike. However, the terms of our insurers is that we don't work with the bike and the bike parts unless they are using accountable suppliers for the bike parts. Granted, I'm paraphrasing a little bit here, but you probably see where I'm going with this. we can't just buy it from anybody. You know, we need to be able to make sure these parts are certified and tested. As for the overseas bike brands found on the likes of AliExpress and Wish.com, they won't be paying out or holding their hands up for the accountability, as there's no way to enforce them. In 2022, 11 people lost their lives to e-bike and e-scooter fires with lithium batteries, according to the UK Office Product Safety and Standards. It's quite scary, really. So let's be real. We don't really want you to have a faulty product, your house to burn down, you to be injured or unalive. That's kind of the truth of the matter here. This is where Bafang is a little bit different. So Bafang are currently building up their UK distributor model through EMCB, which is a UK company. This means that we can now service and work on anything with a Bafang motor, Bafang products. That's a big push in the right direction for that Chinese electronics model there, because then we've got someone to hold accountable for it. They are therefore a bit more trustworthy, a bit more easier to work with. Jorvik is a UK-based bike company. Again, someone else held accountable. If anything goes wrong, they will hold their hands up. However, this means we still don't work on e-bike conversions. Okay, we've got the boring bit out of the way now. Let's see what we need to do next. So, we know that we have a Bafang motor. It's branded, it's there. However, this isn't always the case that the whole system is Bafang. These days, Bafang makes whole systems for whole bikes, and they sell it wholesale with the brand new fully built bike. For these companies, these bike brands will get a whole system now. What used to happen is bike brands would try and make a system out of various parts that talk to each other. So a Bafang motor with a third-party speed controller, a third-party battery, and maybe a Bafang display, but a lot of the time it would be a third-party display as well. That makes it incredibly difficult for us as bike mechanics, because we can't just go, oh yeah, we'll call Bafang and get all the right parts for this system like we would Shimano or Bosch. Due to that, we're going to have to call Bafang in the UK and see if they know what this speed controller is and if they can get a replacement for us. The chances that it is a Bafang speed controller are quite slim, but maybe they can point us in the right direction for the correct speed controller. If that is the case, then we might be able to make some headway there, but it's going to be an uphill battle from here on out. So hopefully not too much time will pass, and we'll see you soon. We are back. It's been a while, but we have an update. So I have spoken to Bafang over a period of around about 2 to 3 months now, and we've not got good news. They cannot supply the battery controller for this bike. It turns out that some of these systems predate Bafang UK, which we kind of knew about. So therefore there was a chance that it could be a Bafang control system and a Bafang motor, or it could also be a Bafang motor and a non-Bafang control system, and that's what this sits into, sadly. We're into the category of a bit of the unknown, a bit of a variable, where this company, Jorvik, with their earlier models, would buy in the Bafang drive units here, or in this case, motor unit in the front wheel, and they would match it with a battery controller, which would be from, I think it was Lishway, but we'll link that in a second. So yeah, Lishway controller that fits in this bike. The sad thing is that is not a UK distributable part. No one in the UK that is a bike distributor sells that part. So the reason I'm re-emphasizing that there is we legally can't buy it and fit it and have insurance on that part.
Let's see if we can help Tom out here. After all, this is more of a management shop owner thing anyway. The legal aspect that Tom's referring to is more about the actual speed limits and the safety factors. What we're most concerned about here is actually the limits of our insurance. And over the last few years of the growing popularity in e-bikes, this has become more and more of an issue. And almost every year that we try and negotiate our insurance, we're finding more and more restrictions placed on our ability to fix e-bikes, probably because of all those massive things you see in the news about house fires, tower block fires. Bills are getting big, you know, we're burning down houses rather than just a small personal injury claim. And that's why they're bringing this down. Now, we are not allowed to fit or service or sell anything that hasn't come from a country that is involved in like the Western legal framework area. There's various treaties and conventions, which means that if my insurance company needed to loss adjust against a claim, they would go to Bosch or they go to Shimano and they would take the claim higher. Problem is that you can't sue a Chinese nondescript company. There's no way that they can do that. So therefore that they limit it. They just say, do not fit anything that hasn't come from something in that area, and it's pretty clear. So although the Bafang, for instance, has got a UK distributor, we can contact Bafang. This particular speed controller can't be brought from Bafang or any European seller. We can only find it on an eBay seller coming from a different country with no backup there, so we can't sell it. We can't even really advise the customer on how to fit it, you know, that they are pretty much on their own. Hope that tidies it all up. It is a complete mess, but we're all just trying our best here.
Okay, so major tasks that we need to complete on this job are fitting this upgraded hydraulic brake system. It's just not safe with cable brakes. So you've got a really heavy mass with an e-tricycle going down a hill. It's not exactly safe on a normal cable brake. You've not really got the braking pressures there. It's just not good. So we're going to go for the hydraulic upgrade here, which we managed to secure from Jorvik. This does plumb into the electrics. So we also have the brake cutoff switch on here, which is quite nice. So that's all that sorted there. We need to rework the battery system. We're replacing the original cable for obvious reasons. This absolute fire hazard of a cable here, look at that. With this secure brand new cable with the proper connectors on there that are water sealed. Got a battery rail to fit. We need to drill that into place, get that fitted. That's our ECU cover there. And then we just need to secure all of the cables and make sure they're all working. Quick check of the gears, and the biggest problem, the tyres on backwards. Got to sort that out. Can't have that tyre on backwards. So on the cheaper Bafang systems, hub drive systems and whatnot, what you tend to see is an electronic cutoff like this. This will plumb into the ECU module in here, and what we'll get is effectively a sensor unit here and a magnet. In this case, the magnet is on the back of where the barrel fits from the brake cable. So when the barrel pops out of the brake lever when you're pulling the brake, this magnet will pass over the sensor and allow the system to know that you're braking, thus cutting the circuit then breaks and it says, oh, why is the circuit broken? I'm braking. Right, so before we conclude this little segue, if you found this interesting so far and you want to see more of these problem-solving videos, then like and subscribe, comment down below, tell us what you actually think. Now let's get into this conclusion. Right then, we ran out of time to film the outro of this video with the bike here still, or the trike in this case. Usually, we obviously want to do everything in scene so you can see it and we can talk about it properly. However, we're just going to have to gather our thoughts on this one and try and really come up with a conclusion. So, we've learned a lot from this. Just because it says Bafang on the outside doesn't mean it's Bafang on the inside. In this case, we had a 36 volt system with a 34 volt cutoff. The speed controller that we were supplied initially had a 48 volt system with a 38 volt cutoff, and our battery was only 36 volt. So that first replacement ESC that we had wouldn't work with the system because it wouldn't meet the low voltage cutoff. Therefore, it wouldn't power the system properly. So we couldn't even test with that one really. And then if we wanted to replace it, we needed to buy a third-party ECU directly, which we can't do. Something else we did learn about this is the fact that this brake system that we were supplied with from Jorvik, this hydraulic conversion effectively from the cable operated old version, the new Jorvik bikes, or trikes in this case, have a left hand and a right hand brake caliper. they're inverted. So where the hose normally comes out of one side of the caliper, on the other one, it was coming out of the other side. And that original trike wasn't made like that. That was made for two left-hand calipers, like you would traditionally have a left-hand caliper on any bike. Therefore, it wouldn't line up with the mounts. So I identified the fact that these calipers are very similar to Tektro calipers. So much so, the Tektro caliper I had in my spares box looked identical. So I took it apart, checked the fittings, and sure enough, everything fits together. So that really random brand that was supplied to us mixed with a Tektro caliper on the other side, it is a mineral oil system, so yeah, everything kind of meets up, everything talked to spec, there was no leaks, and we can also warrant a Tektro caliper. Jorvik are going to have to warrant their own system caliper if there was a problem with it. So again, we can do that. So I fitted that up. Those hydraulic brakes are working much better than the cable actuated brake. And for the weight of that bike, a hydraulic brake system is a lot more capable. To me, it's a little bit safer because it also had the handbrake module on there. So there's a little red lever on that brake where you could flick that on and you can lock the brake on there. So the trike doesn't roll backwards or something on an incline, because that is a problem you do get with these heavy trikes. They do tend to roll about. So locking that brake on there kind of is a bit of a safety feature as well, especially when you're unmounting from the trike, especially if you've got any sort of physical disabilities. That brake is a big improvement over safety. So we fixed all of the minor caveats. So we rotated that tyre. Big pet peeve for me and Chris over there. We didn't like that tyre on being on backwards. We have also then gone in and sorted the headset out, did a minor adjustment on there. We already knew the gears were fine, so that was all good. We adjusted the front brake, so that actually works. There wasn't really much wrong with that front brake. And to be honest, for slowing down, that cable brake on the front is absolutely fine. We've got the backup from a dual calipered hydraulic rear brake. If we really need the brake when it's going gets tough, we've also got the front brake just to, you know, calm things down. It is electrically circuit broke like we showed earlier. So if the circuit breaks, the motor then disconnects from the system effectively. Finally, the whole thing is done. It's mechanically sound. And essentially, we have done all of the mechanical work with it, and it's all fit for purpose now. It's a shame not to be able to ride that bike out of the door being electrically powered. I always like to do a project to 100% completion, not 90% at best. That is not always the ideal outcome. However, we've done as much as we can with this job. This project has been quite an annoying one because there's been a lot of question marks around parts that don't really have much literature about them. We can't look at an instruction manual or an exploded view on this system, and even though we can contact the brand of the bike, they are out of touch with their history of this bike because it's so old in their catalogue of bikes they've got. So they no longer support this bike. It's a shame, but hopefully we've stopped it from going to landfill, and maybe this bike trike can live on.